Sunscreen. You put it on your skin on a hot day before going outside. Parents put it on their kids before they hit the pool. Everyone reaches for the highest SPF on the shelf because that number means protection. More is more. That logic is exactly what the biggest brands in this category are counting on. Because when independent researchers ran over 2,000 sunscreens through the database, the same pattern kept coming back. The products with the highest numbers, SPF 100, SPF 100+, consistently carried the most concerning ingredient lists. Hormone-disrupting chemicals absorbed into the bloodstream after a single application. UV filters the FDA has declined to classify as safe and effective. And in some cases, a known carcinogen found inside a nationwide voluntary recall. The worst-rated product in the entire kids' sunscreen database is not some obscure off-brand. It's a name most parents have applied to their children for years. Today, 10 sunscreen brands to put back on the shelf, and 5 that came out clean. Stay until the end, because the #1 clean pick is not the brand anyone would guess. Number 10. Hawaiian Tropic Silk Hydration Dry Oil Sunscreen Mist, SPF 15. Hawaiian Tropic has been selling the idea of the tropics for decades. Silk hydration, effortless summer skin. The dry oil sunscreen mist carries that whole world in its name. Unhurried, luminous, SPF 15. That number is where the story starts. Dermatologists have recommended a minimum of SPF 30 for any meaningful outdoor protection for years. A product sitting at 15 is offering partial defense for the conditions it is being sold for. But the SPF number is only the beginning. The active ingredients inside, homosalate, octocrylene, and avobenzone, belong to a class of UV filters the FDA has declined to classify as safe and effective. Not a finding of danger, but not a clearance either. It means the safety determination is unresolved, and the FDA has said publicly it needs more data before it can make that call. The research found developmental and reproductive toxicity concerns rated as moderate in the independent review. There's a specific note on octocrylene. When this ingredient is exposed to heat and light, which is every time it's used outdoors, it can break down into benzophenone. The International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified benzophenone as possibly carcinogenic to humans. The front of the bottle says silk. The back carries a UV filter with a degradation pathway researchers have flagged with a carcinogen classification. The promise is a softly protected summer. The ingredient list contains UV filters without FDA safety classification, and an active compound that becomes something else entirely in sunlight. Number 9. Coppertone Water Babies Sunscreen Lotion, SPF 50 Water Babies. That name has been in American medicine cabinets since 1989. It carries a very specific kind of trust, the kind parents extend to products designed for the most vulnerable skin they know. Coppertone built that trust across 3 decades, and the front of this bottle does everything right. SPF 50, designed for children, water resistant. The back of the bottle tells a different story. The active ingredient list runs homosalate, octocrylene, octosalate, avobenzone. 4 chemical UV filters. All 4 are systemically absorbed into the bloodstream after application, confirmed in an FDA study published in 2020, which found that all 6 chemical sunscreen actives tested absorbed into the blood at concentrations that exceeded the agency's own safety threshold for systemic exposure. Not one of the 4 in this formula has been classified as safe and effective by the FDA. They have been in use for decades. The formal safety determination has not been made. The European Commission has moved further on this. Homosalate, present in water babies, has been targeted for restriction at concentrations far below what this product contains. The scientific concern is hormonal activity, potential estrogenic effects, and effects on placental tissue. For a formula being applied to developing bodies, the independent review at the time of this research flagged developmental and reproductive toxicity as high. There is also fragrance in this formula, in a product explicitly positioned for infant skin. Water Babies promises the highest level of care for the most vulnerable consumers. The ingredient list, as reviewed by independent researchers, carries a high reproductive toxicity flag and fragrance in a baby product. The brand knew both things were on the label. Neither appears on the front. Number 8. Coppertone Sport Sunscreen Lotion, SPF 50. Same brand, different shelf position. Water Babies is positioned as gentle. Sport is positioned as tough. Built for athletes, outdoor workers, anyone who needs protection to hold up under real conditions. Different audience, different language, different visual identity entirely. The active ingredient stack is nearly identical. Homosalate at 10%, octocrylene at 8%, octosalate, avobenzone. The same 4 chemical filters, the same systemic absorption profile, the same unresolved FDA classification. High developmental and reproductive toxicity flagged by the independent review. Fragrance present. UVA/UVB balance rated as moderate, meaning the protection the formula actually delivers against the full UV spectrum does not match what the SPF number on the front implies. But here is what having both Coppertone products on this list actually reveals. The Water Babies formula and the Sport formula are not meaningfully different in what they put into the body. One packaging performs a promise of gentleness for fragile infant skin. The other performs a promise of peak athletic performance. The chemistry underneath both promises is largely the same stack of unclassified chemical filters. The brand segmented the marketing. The formula did not follow. Number 7. Walgreens Dry Touch Sunscreen Lotion, SPF 100. SPF 100. Store brand, accessible price, the highest number on the shelf. For a lot of shoppers, that is the math done. SPF 100 sounds like the end of the argument. The research has been consistent on what SPF 100 actually means. The difference in UVB protection between SPF 50 and SPF 100 is approximately 1%. SPF 50 blocks 98% of UVB rays. SPF 100 blocks 99%. That single percentage point is not what it sounds like on a bottle. But to produce it, manufacturers load higher concentrations of chemical UV filters into the formula, because those filters are what drive the number up. And those filters are the same compounds without FDA safety classification, absorbed systemically, flagged across the research for hormone disruption and reproductive toxicity concerns. The independent annual guide flagged this product specifically by name across multiple years of reviews. Not once, across multiple consecutive years. Dry touch describes the texture of the product going onto the skin. It has nothing to say about what the filter load does once it crosses through. The number on the front of a Walgreens SPF 100 is the product of a formula that independent researchers found worth flagging every single year they reviewed it. That is the distance between the promise and the product. Number 6. Neutrogena Ultra Sheer Dry Touch Sunscreen Lotion, SPF 100+. Neutrogena, one of the most recognizable names in American skincare since 1930. The Ultra Sheer Dry Touch line has been a pharmacy shelf fixture for over 2 decades. Clean clinical packaging, SPF 100+. The brand essentially communicates trust through familiarity at this point. It barely has to say anything. But the research kept returning to this product. Specific SKUs from this line appeared on the independent annual guide's worst-rated list across consecutive years. When the ingredient list is examined, it becomes clear why. Oxybenzone sits at 6%, the maximum concentration the US currently permits in sunscreens. In 2021, the European Commission published a final opinion finding that current human exposure levels to oxybenzone were unsafe. The Commission proposed restricting it to 2.2% in body and spray products, a level nearly 3 times lower than what this formula contains. The US standard has not moved. Homosalate in this formula registers at one of the highest concentrations found in any product reviewed in this research. The EU has proposed restricting homosalate at concentrations far below this level for similar reasons. Potential hormone disruption, possible estrogenic activity. The US allows up to 15%. This formula is at that ceiling. The FDA has questioned SPF claims above 50 as potentially misleading since 2011. The 100 plus on the front of this bottle is a number the FDA's own published guidance challenged more than a decade ago. Inside that bottle sits oxybenzone at a concentration Europe has moved to restrict, and homosalate at a level Europe has proposed heavily limiting. Ultra Sheer describes how it feels going on. It has nothing to do with what stays behind. Number 5. Neutrogena Cool Dry Sport Sunscreen Spray. SPF 100, another Neutrogena entry, this time in an aerosol spray. Fast application, hands-free deployment, full coverage. The format is built for efficiency. It is particularly popular with parents covering kids before outdoor activities, athletes hitting it before a race. The Independent Annual Guide named this product specifically on its worst list. But there is an additional dimension to this one that sits apart from the ingredient conversation entirely. Johnson & Johnson announced a nationwide voluntary recall of 5 Neutrogena and Aveeno aerosol sunscreen sprays, in cooperation with the FDA in July 2021, due to the presence of benzene. Benzene is a known carcinogen, linked in research to leukemia and other blood disorders. The recall was Johnson & Johnson's own announcement. The contamination had been confirmed. Viewers should verify current recall status close to the time of watching. The spray format compounds all of this in a specific way. When an aerosol sunscreen is applied, the product is not simply being transferred onto skin. An aerosol cloud is being released into the air immediately surrounding the person applying it, and anyone standing nearby. The inhalation pathway is direct. Independent researchers have flagged spray formats as a separate category of concern for this reason consistently. The FDA conducted pilot testing that found spray products failing to meet proposed safety standards. Cool Dry describes the feel of the formula on skin. It does not describe the voluntary recall, the benzene finding in the product line, or the lung exposure that comes with every aerosol application. Number 4. CVS Health Ultra Sheer Sunscreen Lotion, SPF 100. The house brand of one of the largest pharmacy chains in the country. The positioning is straightforward, accessible, affordable, maximum protection for the family. The independent review at the time of this research returned the worst possible rating for this product. Oxybenzone at 6%, homosalate at 15%, octocrylene at 10%, octosalate at 5%. 5 flagged concerns. One of the few products in this entire research set to carry a cancer concern flag alongside the reproductive toxicity rating. UVA/UVB imbalance flagged as high, meaning the protection this product claims on the front does not accurately reflect what the formula delivers against the full UV spectrum. There is a specific note on CVS as a company that belongs here. They publicly announced plans to phase out oxybenzone and octinoxate from their store brand sun protection products. That announcement was real. But as of this research, the SPF 100 product, the one positioned as maximum protection, the one a customer reaches for when they want the best coverage on the shelf, still contained oxybenzone at the maximum US permitted concentration. The phase-out commitment was genuine. The product built for people wanting the highest number was the one it did not reach. Number 3. Equate Beauty Ultralight Sunscreen Lotion, SPF 100. Walmart's store brand. Value priced, nationally distributed, on shelves in thousands of locations. The most widely accessible sunscreen in this entire data set. For a significant portion of the population, this is what sunscreen costs, and this is what it looks like. The independent review at the time of this research returned the worst possible rating. Oxybenzone at 6%, octocrylene at 10%, and then homosalate. And here is where this one stands apart even among products already at the worst rating in the database. The homosalate concentration in this formula is 15%. The European Commission, in its safety assessment of homosalate, initially proposed a maximum safe concentration of 0.5% for some product types. Even its higher revised allowance of 7.34% applies only to face products. This formula contains homosalate at 15% for full-body application, more than double the highest concentration European science has proposed as acceptable for the least exposed application route on the body. Ultralight describes the texture. It says nothing about a homosalate concentration running at a level that sits well outside what European regulators have considered acceptable in any format assessed to date. Number 2. Banana Boat Kids Max Clear Sunscreen Spray, SPF 100. Every word on that front label is working. Kids, Max, Clear. The formula is invisible, effortless, and formulated for children. The word Max is carrying a specific promise, as much protection as a sunscreen can provide, given specifically to the people in a parent's life who most need it. The independent review at the time of this research returned the worst possible rating. Oxybenzone at 6%, homosalate at 10%, octocrylene at 10%, octisalate at 5%. 6 flagged concerns, the highest number of flagged concerns across the entire dataset reviewed. High developmental and reproductive toxicity. The spray format means every single application creates an aerosol cloud around a child's face and airway. But here is the detail that stood out above everything else in this part of the research. In the Independent Annual Guide's review of products specifically designed for children, this was the only product in the entire kids category to receive the worst possible rating in that review year. That research is now nearly a decade old. As of the time this episode was produced, the product remained available for purchase. Viewers should check current availability and formulation before purchasing. Max was the promise on the front. The independent review found something different on the back. The worst rating in the database, in a spray, on children. Number 1. Banana Boat Ultra Sport Clear Sunscreen Spray, SPF 100. And here is where the pattern that opened this episode lands. Banana Boat, Ultra Sport, Clear, Performance. The entire front of pack architecture is a statement about standards. The athlete's choice, the outdoor worker's choice, maximum SPF in a spray that disappears on contact. The independent review at the time of this research returned the worst possible rating. The chemical stack is nearly identical to the Kids Max product immediately above it on this list. Oxybenzone at 6%, homosalate at 10%, octocrylene at 10%, octisalate at 5%. 6 flagged concerns. High developmental and reproductive toxicity. High UVA/UVB imbalance. Meaning the SPF 100 on the front is a poor guide to what the formula actually delivers against the full spectrum of ultraviolet radiation. Banana Boat announced a voluntary recall of its hair and scalp sunscreen spray, SPF 30, in cooperation with the FDA due to the presence of benzene. Viewers should verify current recall status close to the time of watching. Denatured alcohol and isobutane are present at high concentrations in the spray propellant, both compounds that compound what the aerosol format delivers beyond just the skin surface. In a separate independent lab test conducted in Australia, the Banana Boat Sport Sunscreen Lotion, SPF 50+, returned a result of just 35 against its stated protection claim, roughly 30% below the number on the front. The tested product was sourced from the Australian market. The finding is noted here because it points to a broader pattern of SPF accuracy concerns across the brand that independent researchers in multiple markets have identified. Ultra Sport implies the highest standard of performance protection available. The research found the worst possible safety rating, a benzene recall on a product in the same line, and SPF accuracy concerns identified in third-party testing in a separate market. The highest number on the shelf, the worst score in the database. That is the distance between the front and the back of a Banana Boat Ultra Sport Clear Sunscreen Spray SPF 100. That is the bottom of the database. Here is what the top of it looks like. The brands that follow all share something the previous 10 do not. Their active ingredient list is short, often a single entry, and in every case, that ingredient is the same: zinc oxide. The one sunscreen active the FDA has formally reviewed and classified as generally recognized as safe and effective. Not pending further data, not awaiting additional study, classified. The front and the back of every product in this section say the same thing. All scores and certifications below reflect the independent review as of early 2026. Number 5. Babo Botanicals Clear Zinc Sunscreen, SPF 35. Independent third-party certifications sit behind this product: USDA Certified Organic, Made Safe Certified, B Corp Certified, NSF Organic, and EWG Verified across multiple years of the annual guide, including 2025 as of this research. Non-nano zinc oxide as the sole active ingredient, SPF 30. The range independent research consistently identifies as providing real protection without the ingredient burden higher numbers require. When 5 separate outside organizations have reviewed the same formula and signed off independently, the front of the label is not doing any lying. Number 4. All Good Mineral Sport Sunscreen Stick, SPF 30. Score of 1 from the independent review at the time of this research. 0 flagged concerns. Zinc oxide at 20% as sole active. The carrier base is jojoba oil, beeswax, shea butter, coconut oil. Oregon Tilth Certified Organic, Leaping Bunny Certified, Reef Safe. The sport positioning here is earned through format and water resistance, not through a chemical filter stack designed to push a number higher than the formula can honestly deliver. Number 3. Badger Adventure Mineral Sunscreen Cream, Unscented, SPF 50. Score of 1 from the independent review at the time of this research. 4 ingredients total. Zinc oxide at 25% as the sole active, the highest concentration of any well-rated brand found in this research. Sunflower seed oil, beeswax, tocopherol. That is the complete list. Low across every health concern category in the independent review. One minor efficacy note on UVA balance. That is the only flag in the entire database entry for this product. No fragrance, no chemical filters, no proprietary blend with a trade name sitting where an ingredient list should be. 4 ingredients, SPF 50. Score of 1. That is what minimum looks like when it is doing maximum work. Number 2. Think Baby Clear Zinc Sunscreen Lotion, SPF 30, EWG verified as of early 2026. Zinc oxide at 20% as sole active ingredient. 0 concerns flagged. The full ingredient list reviewed and confirmed by independent scientists. Every ingredient confirmed to be used at a concentration below the threshold for health concern. Formulated for infant skin. SPF 30 in the range where independent review consistently finds genuine protection without the filter load that chasing higher numbers requires. The front says mineral sunscreen. The back confirms it. Number 1. Think Sport Clear Zinc Sunscreen Lotion, SPF 50. EWG verified as of early 2026. The highest independent certification available in the sunscreen database, above any numerical score. Zinc oxide at 23.4% as the sole active ingredient. 0 concerns, 0 flagged issues. The complete ingredient list reviewed and confirmed by independent scientists. The entire UV protection load in this product is carried by one mineral ingredient the FDA has formally classified. No oxybenzone, no homosalate, no octocrylene, no avobenzone. Nothing the FDA's own 2019 safety proposal identified as needing further data before it could be considered safe and effective. The front says mineral protection. The back says mineral protection. There is no gap. A few specific things to look for the next time a sunscreen label is in hand. On the avoid side, Oxybenzone, linked in research to hormone disruption, absorbed into the bloodstream after a single application, detectable for weeks after use. The European Commission found current US level exposure unsafe. The US standard has not moved. Homosalate, the subject of European restrictions at concentrations far below what products in US stores currently contain. The concern is potential hormonal activity, particularly for developing bodies. Octocrylene. It degrades into benzophenone in heat and sunlight, and benzophenone has been classified by international cancer researchers as possibly carcinogenic to humans. Retinoyl palmitate, a form of vitamin A. Government animal studies have linked it to accelerated skin damage when the ingredient is exposed to sunlight. Not what most people picture when they see a vitamin on an ingredient label. Spray and aerosol formats, inhalation risk, uneven coverage, and benzene contamination confirmed across multiple brands in independent testing. The independent annual review recommends avoiding them entirely as a product category. And the SPF number itself. Anything above 50 provides only marginally greater protection than SPF 50, according to FDA guidance, roughly 1 additional % of UVB blockage. But it typically requires a heavier chemical filter load to reach that number. The pattern in this research was consistent across years of data. The highest SPF numbers on the shelf carried the most problematic formulas in the database. On the look-for side, zinc oxide as the first and only active ingredient, non-nano noted on the label, relevant for reef safety and skin penetration questions. The EWG verified mark, independent confirmation that scientists reviewed the complete formula, not the brand reviewing itself. And SPF between 30 and 50, where the protection is real, independently verified, and the ingredient burden is at its lowest. If this kind of research is worth having, subscribing means none of it gets missed. There is another episode that is worth watching next. Stay informed.